The bilateral relation with long-term vision, developing a win-win mentality about each other's development and cooperating in multilateral purposes. India responded in 3 points: mutual interest, mutual sensitivity, and mutual respect. Okay, a product of this Chinese trickery, after making incursion into the Indian territory in the winter of 1986 at Sumdorang Chu Valley in Arunachal Pradesh. Chinese follow the formula: what I occupy is mine, what I claim is debated. Okay, Narendra Modi government has effected an important shift in the India's border policy with China that includes, besides proactive diplomacy, strong ground posturing as well. Despite Doklam and Ladakh, Chinese don't seem to realize that the current regime in India thinks differently and has a different approach. They continue with old practice of upping the ante before every important bilateral visit to upset the Indian agenda by introducing new issues. Next article that we are moving, the continuation of the article is both EAM and NSA of India have been able to convey Delhi's position firmly but politely to Wang, sending him back almost empty-handed. After India abstained from the vote on Ukraine at the UN Security Council, UN, both Russia and Chinese have tried to project it as India's support to them. The Chinese media went overboard, suggesting it as India's change of heart. India's stand on Ukraine is markedly different from that of China. China justifies Russia's aggression in Ukraine in the name of security concern. India is committed to international rule of law and respect of the territorial integrity and sovereignty of the nation. Okay, this is what the article talks about. Next article that we are moving into is related to from missile to meals. Okay. Narendra Modi has emphasized the need for India to be a Atmanirbhar Bharat, that is self-reliant in defense equipment. Focusing on science and scientists is critical for attaining self-reliance today. But self-reliance in food does not mean that we have to produce everything ourselves at home irrespective of the cost. Its true meaning lies in the specializing in commodities in which we have comparative advantage. It is about the degree of self-reliance a country wants to have the following principles of comparative advantage. In the area of agriculture and food, our research reveals that it is the effort and resource that a country puts in agri research and development. Its extension from lab to land, investing in irrigation to boost yields, efficiency in marketing and processing the produce, and taking it to farmers field to consumers table or export destination. Next continuation is, if India wants to be fully self-reliant in food, it generally agreed that it must invest at least 1% of its agri GDP in agri R&D. But the budget of both union government and state government put together reveals that there was expenditure on agri R&D and education hovers over 0.6% of agri GDP. The agriculture, so far India has achieved self-reliance in agriculture by producing a reasonably large amount of food and also being a net exporter of agri-produce. The high dependence on imports of edible oils hovering around 55 to 60% of consumption. Economic survey explicitly highlighted the correlation between spending on agri R&D and agricultural growth. Our researchers also shows that every rupee spent on agri R&D yields much better returns compared to returns on every rupees spent on, says, fertilizer subsidy and power subsidy. Yet the competition populism in Indian democracy leads to suboptimal choice in allocation of scarce resources, more on safety nets like food subsidy and MNREGA or income support subsidies for farmers, but very little for agri R&D. This type of resource allocation in union budget for financial year 23, which is heavily tilted towards safety nets and subsidies. Okay, the need of the hour is to focus on increasing expenditure on ARA. And other development projects which aid in the sustainable growth of the agriculture sector. India's budget allocation in agri-food space should thrive on creating more from less. Financing should focus on altering the current atmosphere of high incidence of hunger and malnutrition, keep a check on the mismanagement of natural resources and mitigate climate change issues. In addition to this, government should come out with policies that incentivizes private companies to expand their R&D programs and invest more financial resources on development projects which have the potential to overcome the challenges of current agrarian setup of India. Okay, this is what the article is all about. Next article is related to these exams are These exams are not going to be like IIT exam, considered among the toughest in the world. Our experts will moderate the difficulty level. The question will be confined to class 12 CBSE syllabus alone. CUET, Common University Entrance Test for central universities. For too long, we have unnecessarily driven our children to achieve high scores rather than encourage them to good learners. If students get admission in a top colleges, his or her choice, that would look like students has to continue to be a good learner. Okay. The higher education sector is also grappling with other major challenges: vacant teaching posts, swelling enrollment, and too few good colleges and universities. How are you doing to address these? One of the solutions suggested in the national education policy is the introduction of digital technology in higher education. If you continue to construct physical campuses at this rate, we will not be able to meet the needs of the millions of students who will be coming into higher education. So what UGC has done is to focus on offering online education to the students who could join a physical university. There are two things that we are doing. One is to establish the digital university. We are also amending the current online regulation. During the pandemic, there was a huge boom in online learning, but the campus life play a huge role too. Is digital the only way you see that future was being addressed, or is there going to be genuine old-fashioned infrastructure expansion as well? One is social aspect. You are saying that if I don't go to physical universities, I miss out on meeting my own peers and developing networks. That is true, but imagine the other side. Okay, next article that we are moving into is related to cash with public at a new high this fiscal even, digital payment rise by a third. According to RBI definition, currency with public is arrived after deducting cash with bank from total currency in circulation. ICIC refers to currency notes and coins issued by central bank within a country that is physically used to conduct the transaction between the consumer and the business. Even as the government is pushing for less cash society with digital transaction clocking steady growth, cash remains preferred mode of payment. While cash usage was widespread in financial year 21 due to COVID-induced lockdown, it still remains a dominant mode of payment among the numerous merchants. Since demonetization in 2016, democracy in circulation has risen steadily every year. Next article that we are moving into is related to India UAE trade deal likely in force from May, focus on boosting SME job. India and UAE on Sunday released the full text of Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement (CEPA) that was signed between two countries in February. The pact, likely to come into force on May 1, is expected to boost the bilateral trade between the two countries to $100 billion over 5 years as against $43.3 billion in financial year 2021. It covers goods and service and rules of origin and intellectual property rights, e-commerce, government procurement. UAE is currently third largest trading partner. UAE has agreed to facilitate market access for Indian pharmaceuticals that have provided that have been approved in developed jurisdictions such as US and European Union within 90 days. Okay, this is what the article is all about. Next article is MP quota in Kendriya Vidyalayas and why attempt to scrap it. What is MP quota in KVs? Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, the autonomous body under Ministry of Education that manages the KV, introduced a special scheme in 1975 allowing a fixed quota for admission to each members of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Granting these discretionary power was aimed at helping the MPs serve their constituents better. An MP recommendation for admission are limited to class 1 to 9 and to the children whose parents belongs to MP constituencies. There was also separate discretionary quota allowed the Educational Minister, earlier known as Human Resource Development Minister, to recommend 450 children to admission for each academic year until 2021. The admission against MP quota and also Education Minister's discretionary quota are above the sanctioned seat strength across Kendriya Vidyalayas, and over the years admission has often exceeded the quota size since MPs and ministers receive several requests. Many of them they claim hard to turn down. Because of the excess admission distorts the student-teacher ratio and deprive meritorious students of an opportunity to study in the Kendriya Vidyalaya, and government had tried to scrap the two quotas over the years. Next article that we are moving into is related to what is behind the new anti-campaign in Maldives. Okay. On March 23, People's Majlis, the Maldivian parliament, accepted an emergency motion disallowing the opposition rally planned 2 days later in the capital Mali. Political context is archipelago nation of about 5 lakh people who won democracy only in 2005 lies at a strategic crossroads in Indian Ocean. India and China have weighed for influence in the Maldives, and Islamists have found a base in the country where Islam is a state religion. Okay, security cooperation. Attention has focused particularly on the cooperation between two countries to develop a harbor on Utturu Taliflar atoll of Maldivian Coast Guard. India has extended $550 billion lines of credit to the Maldives for defense purchase, and country have agreed to combat terrorism in all its forms and manifestation. Maldives is a part of Indian-driven Indian Ocean Minilateral Colombo security conclave in which other members are Sri Lanka and Mauritius, with Bangladesh and Seychelles expected to join soon. MDP has begun a India First campaign had been drafted legislation to criminalize anti-India protest as anti-national. That's all. If you like the video, please do share, like, comment and subscribe. Thank you.